In October of 2022, one of the most popular mangas of all time debuted its long-awaited anime adaptation, animated by Studio Mappa. The anime I'm talking about is, of course, Chainsaw Man. This anime blew up. People from every corner of the anime fanbase came out to watch this thing, including, of course, shonen people, mecha people, magical girl lovers, isekai nerds, fans of the original manga, and haters all came together to see this must-watch show. Of course, that included me and my friends, who were super excited for it as they all read the manga. Except for me, of course. I didn't read the manga, and only knew that my friends really liked it, but never found the time to read it. Nevertheless, I was happy for them and excited to get into what everyone has been talking about. I remember I went into my friend's dorm where a bunch of us were piled together on his bed, and as he put Chainsaw Man on the TV, the first episode was alright. And as the season went on, I found the rest of the season to be alright. Now before you jump me, I will say the animation was pretty amazing, and it's some of Mappa's finest work. And on top of that, there were many scenes I really liked, mainly the Denji and Power against Kishibe scene. But as I finished the first season, I kinda just sat there and wondered, this is what everyone was so hyped about? It just felt like some horny guy who liked booze and decided to kill devils just because he was horny, and there was just some fancy action and nothing much to the story. All the characters felt kinda bland, and although the animation was great, it didn't feel like the colorful panels and covers that the manga made it out to be. Instead of feeling like a more desaturated version of what people were expecting. And as I conveyed this to my friends, I fully expected to get shit on, but to my surprise, they agreed that the first season wasn't super good. But that's because they haven't gotten to the good stuff yet. Knowing the legendary status the series had as a manga, I decided to wait for the next season to see if I really didn't like this series. So I waited, and I waited, and waited, and waited, and waited, until they announced the next arc was gonna be a movie. So then I waited for that, and I waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. Then September 19th, 2025 rolled around, where the movie was finally released, first to Japan, then later to the world. Me and my friends decided to go and watch it, and we tried to go as early as possible as they were handing these bookmark looking things, and I really wanted one. I'd really been looking forward to this as I heard so many people rant and rave about this arc and that this is where Chainsaw Man really starts to take off. On top of that, Mappa listened to what the people were saying about the art style complaints and changed the art style to fit closer to the manga, and my god, it looked fantastic. So finally we went to the theaters and sat down to watch this long-awaited movie. And it was beautiful.
君は学校行ってないだろ？16歳のくせによ。そっちの方がやばいと思いますけどね。
そうかな。そうか。
学校行かないでデビルハンターなんて珍種だよ、珍種。
マキマさんは俺に心ってあると思います？
どうしてそんなことを聞くの？
なんとなく。
I can't believe that this was the same Chainsaw Man that debuted as an anime in 2022, except this time everything felt way more lively and colorful. I love the characters, the action was just pure eye candy, and the voice acting and soundtrack just made me feel so immersed and invested into this movie. I think one of the most striking differences was how differently the art style and animation felt in this movie compared to the first season. And you can tell that the animators seem to have way more freedom in how they animated the characters. One of these examples is in the first few seconds of the film, in the prologue. In this scene, we see Denji going down an alleyway that leads to a door. The most glaring thing about this scene is it's styled like a manga panel. You can literally see the rough lines on Denji or the cross-hatching technique they use for the shadows, similar to that of a traditional manga. And even though the background seems to be CGI, you barely notice it because you're so focused on the unique art style. And by the time you do notice it, it cuts to the opening. When I saw this scene, part of me was wondering if this was Mappa jabbing the viewer with a nod to the complaints about the art style not being like the manga, only for it to cut to the movie art style. It was such a cool opening that I snapped out of a trance-like state when it was over. I also don't want to forget about the amazing sequence that happens right after, with Denji and Aki dragging power. All the while, Iris Out by Kenshi Yonezu is playing in the background, which is a banger and I have it on my Spotify playlist. Another example of the anime is just doing things that they normally wouldn't is during the date scene with Makima. And it just shows Denji gushing over Makima, and it's such a small thing, but I feel like this type of scene or animation would have never fit with the art style of the first season. And thus, it just felt like the animators were either told to change the animation in a more upbeat manner, or they had more freedom with it. I'll come back to part of the beginning of this movie later, but what I really want to focus on is the new character introduced to the story, Reze. Before this movie was even announced, I remember everyone talking about how much they loved Reze and the vast amount of people who cosplayed her, and it left me wondering how much of an impact this character left on people, so much so that a character that hadn't even appeared in the anime at that point was one of the most common cosplays I've seen everywhere. Little did I know how important of a character Reze is, not to Chainsaw Man but to Denji himself, and how much of an impression she would make on me as a viewer. At first, Reze is just a girl that Denji happens to come across while taking shelter from the rain. She seems to be a very cheerful and happy person, not even showing a hint of disgust when Denji pulls a flower out of his mouth to give to her. After the rain stops, she even invites him to grab coffee at the place she works at. Funnily enough, I feel like every person, or at least most dudes that I met, have had an experience like this, where they've met a girl that just drops into your life who seems so different and able to light up their world, being so cheerful at everything, and also excitedly talking to you and laughing at all your jokes, that it makes you think, am I about to have my lungs harvested? I feel like you can even see Denji have that same thought in his head when the scene plays out, but is so allured by her that he gives her the flower, and even shows up at the coffee place she works at, accepting her invitation. Hell, even in the cafe you can see him have those same thoughts, coming to the conclusion that maybe she likes him, that he's falling in love with her, and you can literally see her light up his world. It's so interesting to see Denji be a somewhat normal person for once, as he falls in love with Reze and goes to see her at work basically every day. I feel like the first season was too focused on him being a devil and how he's a bit strange from the normal person, so it was a bit hard to connect with the character, but seeing him here obviously falling for the girl he likes so much so that he visits her every day is something relatable, and really got me to someone like Denji. I feel like a lot of people on Twitter say something like, you obviously are a fucking idiot if you can't see the complexities of this character, after a lot of people watched the first season of the anime. But I can't blame a lot of people for not really taking a liking to Denji in the first season, when they don't really try to make him likable in any way. And I don't just mean relatable, like yeah, I like boobs too, but Denji saying that isn't going to make me start liking him suddenly as a character. However, after this movie, I do somewhat understand why some Twitter users may be frustrated by the constant mischaracterization of Denji, but I feel like the fact that a lot of those losers But I feel like the fact that a lot of those users have already read the manga, so they have more context than what we anime-only viewers have had, which at the time was only season 1, which didn't really focus on the more slice-of-life aspects around Denji. I think that this movie will hopefully do more for Denji than season 1, and although some people reserve their right to still hate Denji, or maybe just not resonate with him, there are many people like me whose minds have been somewhat changed. And although I can't say I love the dude like other anime characters, I certainly do understand him more, and grew to like and root for him throughout the runtime of the movie. Speaking of characters I grew to like throughout the movie, there are two characters that this movie really made me love from the first season. That is, of course, Aki and Angel. I feel like in other videos and reviews of the movie, I never really saw or heard anyone talk about these two, instead focusing on Denji and Reze, and although I get they were the main focus of the movie, I feel like some reviews not including them at all was kind of wild because I really liked the relationships that was built between the two throughout the course of the movie. I did have some positive rapport with Aki in the first season, as I really liked his drive to find the gun devil and kill him, no matter the cost. It's not a super complex thing, but but I was always rooting for Aki. And the fact that he doesn't have much longer to live also really got me to like him. I cannot say the same for Angel, who I completely forgot even appeared in the first season, and was told later by my friends that he was in the first season. Honestly, I also forgot he was a dude. It took me a while to remember that the whole thing about Angel is that if you touch him, you lose years of your life. And touch him long enough, you die. On top of that, Angel has an extreme distaste of humans, thinking that they should die in the most painful way possible. At the moment in the story, it didn't seem like anything much to me, with Aki and Angel appearing similar to how I saw them in the first season, which was bland, but there I guess. But the relationship evolves throughout the story in a way that I'll mention later in the video. What I really want to talk about now is the whole scene with Denji and Reze visiting the school. It's really well set up, and this portion of the movie is my favorite even more than the final fight, which, although gorgeous and really awesome, didn't invoke the same feelings as this portion of the movie. I think one of the things that this movie does best is subverting the viewer. We see some random psychotic dude talk to the Typhoon Devil about taking Denji's heart. When watching the scene, many think that these two are probably going to be the main villains of the movie. When it cuts back to Denji and Reze, Reze shows Denji what school really is like, and eventually takes him to the pool outside the school. Denji reveals that he doesn't know how to swim, so Reze starts to take off her clothes to teach him. Now, I fully expected Chainsaw Man to make this into some sort of joke about nudity or something. However, although there is some light joking, this movie doesn't really make this scene into something sexual. What follows is one of the most beautiful and gorgeous sequences I've ever seen in my life, with Denji plunging into the water, him and Reze frolicking in the pool, all while this beautiful soundtrack plays in the background, giving the whole thing as an almost nostalgic feeling to it. I don't know why, but this sequence is my favorite in the movie, as I feel almost everything about it is just so perfect. They somehow nail the feeling of longing that Denji has had in his life, and the whole thing just looks like a scene straight out of La La Land. It's two humans truly just enjoying life. No devils, no death, just pure joy. Throughout the sequence, you can see Denji physically falling deeper in love with this mysterious girl. All the while, the scene is complemented with shots of a spider, slowly inching towards the prey caught in its web. However, it's not all fun, as a threat lurks in the school. The guy we saw earlier starts to give chase to Reze after he spots her alone, chasing her to the roof of the school, where the threat that was lurking finally reveals herself to the audience. Remember what I said about this movie subverting the viewer? When Reze first appeared in front of Denji, I had a bad feeling. Throughout the whole series, it's always felt like Denji's been betrayed in one way or another. First the debt collector, then Makima manipulating him, Kobeni trying to kill him, and Power trying to get Denji killed. Almost every person Denji has met has tried to kill him, betray him, or manipulate him into getting what they want. So when Reze popped out of nowhere, acting cheerful and not being weirded out by Denji, I had my suspicions. However, when the crazy guy popped up, I sort of forgot about that and thought him and the Typhoon Devil would be the main villains. However, the movie still gets you to think about that initial thought you may have had in the beginning about Reze by showing you imagery of the spider and the prey it had caught on its web. So when Reze finally kills this guy and the Typhoon Devil recognizes her, you realize the man was a red herring this whole time, and made for the viewer to be distracted by instead of focusing on the true villain of the story, Reze. A bit after this scene, it goes back to a montage of scenes with Denji and Reze, but now with a more sinister overtone. And it makes the viewer think that none of what Reze is doing is genuine, right? It's all just an act to get closer to Denji, presumably to take his heart. Well, we can talk about that a bit later. When the eventual reveal happens where Reze takes a bite out of Denji's tongue in order to incapacitate him, a small detail I really liked was that there was some twisted version of the song that played at the pool, literally called In the Pool. Except this version's appropriately called Sweet Danger, and it starts off as a more twisted remix of In the Pool, and leads into a more frantic chase scene tone to reflect the pacing of the movie, where Beam grabs Denji and runs off with him. Another minor detail, when it's revealed that Reze is the Bomb Devil, she pulls a pin on her collar to transform. Fun fact, go through the whole movie, that pin has been there the whole time. I gotta say, the difference between the final bosses of each arc, Katana Man for the first season and Reze for the second, is such a wide gap. In the first season, even though Katana Man was made to be the big bad, I never really got any sort of vibes that he was actually all that dangerous. Don't get me wrong, him and his group wiped out so much of the Special Division, but it seemed almost controlled and not too crazy compared to some of the other monsters we'd seen up until that point. In the movie, however, we can tell that Reze is on a completely different level. For one, she uses her powers to literally blast her to her destination, so much so that even Beam can't escape her. When some devil hunters come to kill her, you'd think that they'd put up even a little bit of a fight, but she literally snaps them out of existence. Beam takes Denji to a station where Aki and Angel are at, and Angel found out that Aki only has 5 years left to live. When he finally sees Denji, Beam reveals that Reze is one of the Gun Devil's allies, which is a pretty damn major reveal. But honestly, I'm skipping through most of this quickly because I don't want this video to end up being a recap, and instead I really want to dig into some of the themes and story points while also sort of being a review. But to further illustrate how terrifying Reze is, she quite literally pulls up to the station filled with devil hunters and fucking eviscerates every last one of them. As Aki, Denji, Angel, and Beam escape in a car, Denji finally wakes up and realizes something that I mentioned a bit ago.
痛くて死にそうって思いながら俺のこんがらがった脳みそでよーく思い返してみたんだけどよ俺が知り合う女がさ全員俺んとが殺そうとしてんだけどみんなチェンソーの心臓ばっか欲しがっちゃってチェンジーの心臓は欲しかねえのか
It truly is a saddening realization, as what the viewer thought might have just been a throwaway interaction between, say, Kobeni and Denji or Power and Denji, actually probably manifested itself into lifelong scars and trauma for Denji, and probably generated a lot of trust issues as well. It really is about the Chainsaw Devil's heart, but never Denji, which I also felt encapsulated the first season entirely, as although we saw people telling Denji to do this and that, and how all the devils were trying to get his heart, we didn't really see much of Denji's personal feelings in the first season compared to the movie, where I feel like the viewer gets to know him better and his feelings on his surroundings, with Reze being the perfect catalyst to do that. What follows is around 20 minutes of the most insane and fun action sequences I could have dreamed of. And much like I said at the beginning of this video, you can tell that the animators went all out with it. Just look at the detail when Denji starts slashing at the flesh of the Typhoon Devil. It turns the rest of the Typhoon red. It's just so fucking cool, and it's pure Sakuga. However, in the midst of all the chaos, destruction, and fighting, there was a scene that I felt was looked over by most of the people online. And that scene is with Aki and Angel. I mentioned before that Aki and Angel didn't really mean much to me at the time in Chainsaw Man, and both of them were pretty bland, so much so I forgot Angel existed. Throughout the movie, you see the dichotomy between the two, with Aki despising devils and Angel despising humans. These two weren't close, and they still aren't at this point in the movie, but the only thing that is developed between the two is Angel's acknowledgement of Aki having not much longer to live. During the fight, Angel is blown away by the Typhoon Devil, but is caught by Aki, who's holding on to Angel's shirt for dear life, resolved not to let him die. Angel, on the other hand, has fully prepared for this, and just as it seems Angel's about to die, Aki grabs his hand. Angel, who knows Aki hates him and all devils, is obviously confused, both on why Aki even bothered to save him, and why he would risk his already limited lifespan to do it. The answer is simple. Aki has seen too many people die already, and doesn't want to see anyone else die in front of him. He then embraces Angel, not in a romantic way, but a tender one. This might be my second favorite scene of the movie, and I'm surprised I didn't hear or see a lot of others talking about it. These two opposites, one who hates all devils and one who hates all humans, embrace in the face of death and destruction around them. For Aki, he's seen it too many times. He's seen his brother, his mentor, and his friend all die brutal and tragic deaths. In that moment, it didn't matter what Angel was, whether he was human or devil, he was a person. That's all that mattered. These two, other than their hatred, are more similar than people think. Both are antisocial and appear harsh and rude to the outside perspective. What made them that way was Aki seeing everyone he loved die, and for Angel, it must have been not being able to have anyone to love, as they would die at a single touch. Maybe that connection was what drove Aki to set aside the fact that Angel was a devil, or simply, he just couldn't stand watching anyone else die. Back to Denji, he and Reze are now near the ocean, having what is possibly the final standoff. It's easy to think that Reze wins this fight handily, except she forgot to factor one thing, and that is... 俺に泳
ぎ方を教えたのは間違いだったな。しけてても爆発できるのか。
And as they both plunge into the ocean, that familiar theme plays yet again. Unlike the pool scene, the music and imagery now carry a more bittersweet tone, as the two sinking to the bottom of the ocean is intersected by memories of the night earlier. Now, Denji's not a complete idiot. He knows that he's been duped by almost everyone he's met in his life. He knows that his life isn't worth much, and he knows that the best way to live his life is to continue hunting devils. And he knows that the devil beside him had just possibly killed hundreds of people and tried to kill him too. So how come despite that, did Denji revive Reze? Well, the obvious answer is because he likes Reze. And yeah, he does, and it for sure is one of the main reasons that he revived her. But there's also another reason. Now it's with this context that we go all the way back to the beginning of the movie. And at the beginning of the video, I said that we would be returning to this point later, and that's right now. In the beginning of the movie, during Denji's date with Makima, he watches a lot of movies with her. Fujimoto is a big fan of movies, which you can plainly see by all the references in the OP of the first season, so it's a no-brainer that he'd use movies to explain the mind of a character. During the movies, Denji realizes he isn't reacting the same as everyone else. When people are laughing at a movie, he doesn't get it. When people are crying at a movie, he doesn't get it. When people are scared during a movie, he doesn't get it. In his mind, he's questioning himself. One of the main points of the first season after Himeno died was the fact that Denji didn't really care. He wondered if Pochita replacing his real heart also took away his emotions and feelings and made him more uncaring. With that thought in mind, he goes to see the last movie with Makima. The theater this time is empty. The scene they watch is conveyed through no words, only actions, but it's enough to make Denji tear up. After the movie, he asks Makima this. It seems that since the first season, the idea of no longer caring was eating away at him, and his confusion is multiplied even more after watching all these movies, either not making him feel anything, or making him feel so strongly at something he didn't know that if he was supposed to feel like that. However, this whole movie has been about Denji and his heart. In the beginning, Denji promised his heart belonged to Makima. In this context, it's both figurative and literal, as Denji loves Makima and is practically wrapped around her finger, but at the same time, the devil where his heart is supposed to be technically belongs to Makima. The next part was Reze, and how Denji's heart started to drift towards her. Unlike Makima, this love developed through shared experience and memories, with him savoring every moment, whether it was in the cafe or at the school. For the first time, to Denji, it felt like someone cared about Denji, not the chainsaw devil. For the first time, Denji felt true love, true joy, true wonder, and eventually, true heartbreak. So to answer why Denji revived Reze, we can also answer the question he posed to Makima. The reason Denji revived Reze is because Denji has a heart. He even tells Reze that if he did kill her, it would eat him up on the inside. Reze tries to tell Denji that she was lying about loving him, and that it was all part of the training she went through. However, even while watching the movie, I knew that was bullshit. Obviously, instead of fleeing the country, she returns to see Denji, who promised to meet her in the cafe. Naturally, that means she did in fact love Denji, but we don't even need that scene to prove it. It felt like from the start, Reze did have a fascination with Denji. Whether that started as a ruse then turned to love, or if it always been love is a mystery on its own. But the fact remains, she loved Denji. She could have killed him at any time, and yet, she took him to the cafe, she taught him how to swim, taught him how school was like, visited a festival with him, and when Denji confronts her about all of what I'm saying right now, she avoids it. And finally, when she tells him that it was all a lie, she leans in for a kiss, only to yet again paralyze Denji, except this time she does it in a much gentler way. Even without the final scene, there's no doubt in my mind she loved Denji. She too is much like Denji, a tool being used by foreign powers for their own benefits. And much like Denji, she too had never been to school, which is the final thing she says before she dies at the hand of Makima and Angel. This movie was immaculate. It really opened my previously shut eyes to the world of Chainsaw Man, and how it could be so beautiful and brutal all at the same time. Seeing that final scene where Denji is just waiting for her when in fact she was dead just a few feet away from him and he never even realized it was genuinely heartbreaking when I witnessed it in the theater. The movie, much like Denji was, managed to move me. I think the funniest part was Tatsuki Fujimoto himself asking why Reze had to die in the end. My brother in Christ, you made the sandwich. Then again, that's Tatsuki Fujimoto for you. An author who one day tries to levitate using the power of his own will, yes you heard that right, and another writes something so touching and heartbreaking that he himself is questioning his own work and why he would do that. When I made this video, I wanted it to be a review, but also a video essay on the themes of the movie, and I really hope I was able to do that for you. I'm now at least a bit of a fan of Chainsaw Man, so much so that I might even start to read the manga, something that my friends were very excited about. So yeah, this is how the Chainsaw Man movie got me to do a 180 on the series. Thank you guys for the support recently, it's meant a lot, and if you like this video, please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and this is SpiritFire, signing out.